I'm Lila Harper, and here's the raw truth. Back when I was 22, I lost both my legs to a bomb in Afghanistan. And when I rolled back home in a wheelchair, my family didn't just ignore me, they acted like I was already dead. That was 8 years ago, and the sting still lingers. A hollow ache that somehow fueled everything I've become. So yeah, stick around if you want to hear how I turned their rejection into my revenge. I grew up in a sleepy Ohio suburb, the kind of place where everyone knows your business, but pretends they don't. Our house was a faded yellow two-story with peeling paint and a patchy lawn. Nothing special, just like me in my parents' eyes. Mom, Diane, was a wiry woman with tired eyes and a permanent frown, always fussing over my little brother, Jake. Dad, Tom, was a broad-shouldered mechanic who smelled like motor oil and spoke in grunts unless Jake was around. Then he'd light up, all smiles and booming laughs. Jake was their son, tall, blonde, with a cocky grin and a soccer ball glued to his foot. Me? I was the shadow, a skinny girl with messy brown hair and a book clutched like a shield. "Mom, I got an A on my essay," I'd say, holding up the paper like a trophy when I was 10. She'd glance over from cutting Jake's sandwich crusts and mutter, "That's nice, Lila," before cooing, "Jakey, you're gonna be a star at tomorrow's game." My chest would tighten, a dull ache spreading as I watched her heap praise on him for kicking a ball while my words went unnoticed. Dad wasn't much better. Once, I built a birdhouse in shop class, nailed every corner perfectly, and he just nodded, saying, "Good effort," before raving about Jake's latest goal. "That's my boy," he'd shout, clapping Jake on the back. I'd stand there, birdhouse in hand, feeling like a ghost. By high school, I'd stopped trying to impress them. I buried myself in novels, Jane Austen, Hemingway, anything to escape. My room became my sanctuary, a tiny space with a creaky bed, a desk piled with books, and a window overlooking the neighbor's dogwood tree. I'd sit there for hours, scribbling stories in notebooks, dreaming of a life where I mattered. "You're wasting your time with that junk," Jake would sneer, barging in to grab my pencil for his homework. "Jake, leave her alone," Mom would call half-heartedly, but she never meant it. He'd smirk and saunter off, leaving me to pick up the pieces of my quiet rebellion. At 18, I'd had enough. I wanted out of that house, out of their indifference. The Army recruiters came to school one day, all crisp uniforms and promises of purpose. I signed up that week, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. "You're throwing your life away," Mom said, folding laundry without looking at me. Dad just shrugged. "Your funeral, kid." Jake laughed, sprawled on the couch. "What, you gonna shoot stuff? You can barely carry groceries." I clenched my fists, my throat burning. But I didn't cry. Not in front of them. "Watch me," I muttered, and walked out the door. Basic training was brutal. Grueling marches, screaming sergeants, the ache of muscles I didn't know I had. But I loved it. For the first time, I felt strong, like I belonged. My platoon became my family. There was Sanchez, a wiry guy with a quick laugh, and Kelly, a tough redhead who'd share her coffee when I was dead on my feet. "You've got grit, Harper," Kelly said once, clapping my shoulder after I finished a 10-mile hike. I grinned, sweat dripping down my face, my legs trembling, but alive. I'd found something they couldn't take away. Or so I thought. 3 years in, everything changed. Afghanistan was a blur of dust and tension, the kind of place that keeps you sharp or kills you. I was on patrol, joking with Sanchez about the awful chow, when the world exploded. A deafening roar, a flash of heat, and then nothing. I woke up in a hospital bed, tubes snaking from my arms, my legs gone below the knees. Pain clawed at me, but worse was the fear, sharp, cold, slicing through my haze. "You're alive, soldier," a nurse said softly, her voice a lifeline. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes, and whispered, "Yeah, I'm alive." But I didn't know what that meant anymore. Coming home from Afghanistan was like rolling into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I'd survived an IED, but the real explosion was waiting for me in Ohio. My stumps ached under the hospital bandages, and my hands trembled as I gripped the wheelchair arms, but nothing hurt more than the look on Mom's face when she saw me. "Oh, Lila," she sighed, like I'd spilled milk instead of lost my legs. "You'll manage." Dad barely glanced up from his newspaper. "Why'd you have to go and get yourself hurt?" he muttered, as if I'd planned it. Jake, sprawled on the couch with a soda, snickered. "Hey, Wheels, need me to push you around?" My stomach twisted, hot anger bubbling up, but I swallowed it. "I'm fine," I said through gritted teeth, wheeling past them to my old room. The doorway was too narrow. Ironic, right? So I parked in the hall, staring at the life I'd left behind. That night, I lay on a lumpy cot they'd shoved in the living room, listening to Mom whisper to Dad, "She's so dramatic." I clenched my fists until my nails bit into my palms. By morning, I knew I couldn't stay. I packed what I could, clothes, my notebooks, a photo of me and Kelly from training, and called a cab. "Where you going, kid?" Dad asked, scratching his stubble as I struggled with the front steps. "Anywhere but here," I snapped. Jake laughed from the porch. "Good luck, cripple." Mom just watched, arms crossed, silent. The cab driver, a gruff guy named Mike, helped me load up without a word. As we pulled away, I didn't look back. My chest felt tight, like I was drowning. But there was a spark, too. Freedom, sharp and wild. I had $2,000 in savings and no plan. But I'd rather sleep on the street than beg them for scraps. Chicago became my landing spot. A gritty, loud city that didn't care about my chair. I rented a shoebox apartment above a deli, the kind with flickering lights and a leaky sink. The first night, I sat by the window, watching snow dust the streets, and cried. Not for my legs, but for the family I'd never had. Then I wiped my face, opened a notebook, and wrote. Words poured out, anger, pain, hope, twisting into stories about broken people who fought back. I posted them on Wattpad, my fingers shaking as I hit publish. Comments trickled in. "This hits hard. Keep going." My heart raced. Someone saw me. By 2022, I'd self-published my first book, Shrapnel Soul, on Amazon. It was raw, messy, about a soldier rebuilding herself. It hit the bestseller list in 6 months. I stared at the sales dashboard, $10,000 in my account, and laughed until I cried. Writing became my legs. I rolled into coffee shops, laptop balanced on my lap, typing while hipsters sipped lattes. A barista, Tara, started slipping me free coffee. "You're that writer, right?" she asked one day, her blue hair catching the light. "Saw you on Twitter." "Lila Unbroken. Badass." I smirked. "Thanks. Gotta keep the lights on." Twitter was my megaphone. Snippets like Day 492, still standing, sort of, got thousands of likes. My followers grew, and so did my spine. By 2024, I was 28, speaking at bookstores and conventions, my voice steady even when my hands shook. A literary agent, Marcy, a sharp woman with red lipstick and a no-nonsense stare, signed me after a panel. "You've got fire, Lila," she said. "Let's make you a star." My second book sold for 6 figures. I moved to a penthouse, the city skyline my new backyard, and thought, this is mine. Then they came back. It was a crisp fall day in 2025, and I was at a Chicago bookstore, signing copies of my latest release. The line snaked out the door, readers, some in wheelchairs, thanking me for Shrapnel Soul. I was mid-signature when I heard her voice. "Lila!" Mom stood there, thinner, gray streaking her hair. Dad loomed behind, hands in his pockets. My pen froze. "What do you want?" I asked, voice cold. Mom's eyes welled up. "It's Jake. He's in trouble. Drugs, gambling. He lost everything. Our house, our savings." Dad coughed. "We need help, kid." My jaw tightened. I'd dreamed of this moment, them begging. But it didn't feel good. It felt heavy. "I gave you $500 last year," I said. That's all you get. Mom grabbed my arm. He's your brother, I yanked back. The brother who called me Wheels? Who laughed while I bled? No. They didn't stop. For months they called, emailed, showed up at my talks. He'll die without rehab, Mom sobbed once, cornering me outside a cafe. You've got money now. Help him. I stared at her, my heart pounding, a lifetime of their neglect flashing by. You chose him over me every day, I said, voice low. Fix your own mess. Dad tried guilt next, his voice gruff over the phone. We're family, Lila. I laughed, bitter. Family! You left me to rot. That night, I blocked their numbers, my hands steady for once. I tweeted, sometimes cutting ties is the only way up. Lila unbroken. It went viral. Retweets, clapping emojis, strangers cheering me on. I leaned back in my chair, the city lights glittering outside, and felt something snap free. They didn't own me anymore. Cutting my family loose was like shedding a skin I'd outgrown, itchy, tight, and useless. I was 30 now, and life looked nothing like that faded yellow house in Ohio. My penthouse in Chicago was all glass and steel, with a view of the skyline that stretched out like a promise kept. I'd roll onto the balcony some nights, the cool air brushing my face, and just breathe. No mom nagging about Jake, no dad grunting about my choices, no Jake smirking like he owned the world. Just me, my wheelchair, and a life I'd built from scratch. My latest book, Unbroken Threads, had just hit shelves, and Hollywood was sniffing around for a movie deal. I'd pinch myself sometimes, expecting to wake up back in that hospital bed. But the checks in my bank account, 7 figures now, told me this was real. Success didn't erase the scars, though. I'd catch my reflection in the glass doors. Messy brown hair, green eyes sharper than they used to be, and see the girl who'd fought for every inch of this. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications, readers tagging me in posts, thanking me for giving them hope. One message stuck with me, from a girl named Sarah, maybe 19, who'd lost an arm in a car wreck. Your books made me feel like I could still be someone, she wrote. I stared at those words, my throat tight, and typed back, You already are. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about me anymore. Every talk I gave, every story I told, was a lifeline for someone else. I'd gone from invisible to unstoppable, and people respected me for it. Not the cash, not the penthouse, but the fight. Jake, last I heard, he was crashing on some buddy's couch, still chasing highs and dodging debts. Mom and Dad had moved into a trailer park after the bank took their house. Karma's quiet like that. They'd stopped calling after I blocked them, but I'd see their names pop up in random emails, subject lines like, We miss you, or Please, Lila. I'd delete them without reading, my finger steady on the screen. Did I feel guilty? Maybe for a second, late at night, when the city hummed below. But then I'd remember Mom's sigh. You'll manage. And Jake's laugh. Good luck, cripple. And the guilt evaporated. They'd made their bed. I wasn't tucking them in. One day, I got a call from Tara, the blue-haired barista who'd been my first fan. She'd moved up to managing a cafe downtown, and we'd stayed friends. You're trending again, she said, her voice crackling with excitement. Lila Unbroken's all over Twitter. People are losing it over your clapback. I laughed, pulling up the app. My tweet about cutting ties had sparked a storm. Thousands of retweets, comments like, Queen behavior, and This is how you win. I scrolled through, a grin tugging at my lips. A guy named Marcus wrote, My dad bailed too. Your story's why I'm still here. I replied, Keep fighting, Marcus. You've got this. The internet wasn't just noise. It was proof I'd turned their rejection into something bigger. The real reward came at a speaking gig last month. It was a packed auditorium in New York. 500 people, standing room only. I wheeled onto the stage, lights hot on my face, and told my story. The bomb. The family who ditched me. The words that saved me. The crowd was silent, then erupted when I said, I didn't need their love to build this. I needed mine. Afterward, a woman approached me, maybe 40, with tired eyes and a shy smile. I'm Jen, she said, clutching my book. My husband left when I got sick. You made me believe I could start over. I signed her copy, to Jen, unbreakable, and watched her walk away, shoulders straighter. My chest swelled, not with pride, but with something warmer. Every word I wrote, every stage I took, was a middle finger to the past and a hand up to someone else. So here I am, 30 years old, richer than my parents ever dreamed, respected by strangers who feel like family. I don't check on Jake or wonder if mom's still crying. I don't need to. I've got my books, my voice, and a life that's mine alone. The best part? I proved I didn't need them. I turned their abandonment into my superpower, and every day I wake up knowing I'm enough. That little girl with the birdhouse, the one they ignored, she's a force now, and she's not slowing down. Here's the thing, though. You don't need my story to find yours. Who's tried to hold you back? Maybe it's a parent, a sibling, a friend who doesn't see you. What are you doing to prove them wrong? I want to know. Drop it in the comments below, because I read everyone. Hit that like button if you're with me. Subscribe if you want more real talk. And let's keep this going. Life's too short to let anyone else write your ending. So tell me, who's your Jake, and how are you leaving them in the dust?